Why was the government doing this? What were they trying to find out?
Well, the First World War had been a chemical war, and there was every expectation that the Second World War would be one as well.
Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 10 discoveries the government hid from the public. For this list, we'll be looking at events, atrocities, and scientific discoveries various governments swept under the rug, but were later uncovered.
Would this piece of celluloid finally provide the definitive evidence for which monster hunters had been waiting since 1933?
What's the craziest thing your country's government has hidden from its people? Be sure to share with us in the comments below. Number 10. Laika's cause of death.
This is the dog Laika. It had been trained to live in a special container. The apparatus, test animal, and power sources on the Sputnik weighed half a ton.
The space race between the US and the Soviet Union resulted in the unfortunate deaths of several animals, but the most famous was Laika. The adorable dog was found on the streets of Moscow as a stray and recruited to the space program. Scientists knew she would perish on her voyage to space, and one even took her home before her tragic mission, so she could experience a bit of peace. Laika became the first animal to orbit the Earth in 1957. The government hid Laika's cause of death from the public, making it seem like she passed from oxygen depletion or was euthanized. However, in 2002, it was revealed that Laika passed due to overheating mere hours into the trip.
It proved a point of tremendous importance, that life could continue in space.
Fly high, sweet pup. Number 9. POTUS's secret hit list.
I don't think any American would be okay if they were after their neighbor and it happened to blow you and your family up in the process. I don't think any Americans would be okay with that.
As one of the most powerful people in the world, the President of the United States has special clearance and access to hidden documents. However, as the New York Times reported in 2012, the President can also keep a top-secret document of their own. Interviews with several former and current advisors uncovered President Obama's process for approving top targets that were unknown to the general public.
Newly disclosed Justice Department document says American citizens tied to al-Qaeda can be killed if, quote, an informed high-level official believes the target poses an imminent threat.
The list was filled with known and suspected terrorists of varying backgrounds, and the president took it upon himself to personally oversee counterterrorism efforts. While President Obama took a more direct approach than most other presidents, the discovery does shine light on the power and secrecy of the Oval Office.
How does dropping a bomb on an American citizen without any judicial review, any trial, not raise the very human rights questions or more human rights questions than something like waterboarding?
The President understands the gravity of these issues. That is why he is committed to taking very seriously his responsibilities in this.
Number 8. Protecting the Loch Ness Monster.
Last week, Japanese scientists placed explosive detonators at the bottom of Lake Loch Ness to blow Nessie out of the water. Sir Court Godfrey of the Nessie Alliance summoned the help of Scotland's local wizards to cast a protective spell over the lake and its local residents, and all those who seek for the peaceful existence of our underwater ally.
The mysterious cryptid, colloquially known as Nessie, is the subject of much debate. Although it has been the subject of folklore for centuries, Loch Ness Monster mania reached a fever pitch after the now debunked surgeon's photograph was released in 1934. In 2010, previously hidden documents revealed that Scottish police once made moves to find the creature and protect it from hunters. In the 1930s, police officers requested help from Britain's Parliament to confirm the Loch Ness Monster's existence.
There has never been any shortage of eyewitness sightings offering evidence that the monster or monsters exist.
Local officials worried that if the creature was found by monster hunters, it would be destroyed or seriously injured. Although the documents were hidden for decades, they show just how far officers were willing to go to protect Nessie and give new hope to cryptozoologists around the world.
And one thing hasn't changed since the Nessie heyday of the 1930s. The lure of an encounter with the unknown.
Number 7. Effects of radioactive elements.
Scientists have been studying the effects of radiation on the body for over 100 years, so we know quite a bit about how radiation interacts with living tissue.
Scientists studying radioactive elements carried out experiments to test their effects in controlled conditions on at least 30 human subjects between 1945 and 1947. The civilians were each injected with americium, plutonium, polonium, and uranium at 4 different hospitals around the United States. Researchers studied various samples from the test subjects to determine how long radioactive material remained in the body and how much was needed to damage various organs.
Then what you're saying is that the amount of plutonium inside me could be 3 times less than you even think?
Or 3 times greater.
The experiments and their findings were kept under wraps for decades, but the Department of Energy finally released detailed reports in 1995. Although all of the subjects had sadly passed away, their families received compensation from the federal government. Number 6, Operation Paperclip.
Does accomplishment cancel out past crimes?
That, I think, is the conundrum of Operation Paperclip.
As the U.S. and the Soviet Union emerged as global superpowers after World War II and entered the Cold War, the U.S. developed a top-secret intelligence program called Operation Paperclip. Between 1945 and 1959, the United States government took in more than 1,600 scientists formerly employed by Nazi Germany, including former leaders in the Nazi Party. These scientists made discoveries and developed technology for their former enemies, especially in the fields of aeronautics and rocketry. Additionally, the United States employed leaders of the nightmarish Unit 731 of Japan for biological warfare research in exchange for immunity. The scientists' pasts were swept under the rug even after their deaths, and many of them completely evaded any consequences tied to their crimes against humanity. Number 5, mustard gas effects. Dudes, chemical warfare is horrifying enough, but using damaging substances on your own soldiers is almost unthinkable. During World War II, 60,000 United States soldiers were subjected to tests to discover the effects of mustard gas and lewisite.
The First World War had been a chemical war, and there was every expectation that the Second World War would be one as well. So the Allied governments, Canada, the United States, Great Britain, Australia, all prepared for a chemical war.
The soldiers were exposed to the chemical agents in a variety of ways, but they all resulted in significant damages, for which the soldiers did not receive medical care. To add an even more diabolical level to the experiments, the soldiers were divided into groups based on race to supposedly test the effects of mustard gas on different skin colors. The soldiers who underwent these terrible experiments were sworn to secrecy and could not reveal the effects of the tests for decades afterwards. Number 4, Project MK Ultra.
It's a lot easier to break a man than you might think. Dr. Olson. Confusion to the enemy.
Methods of extracting confessions can range from mild to mortifying. And this top-secret human experimentation project by the United States CIA definitely tipped the scales to the latter. Between 1953 and 1973, the CIA carried out a series of mind control experiments on thousands of people to discover the effects of hypnosis, torture, abuse, and psychoactive drugs such as LSD.
With a dose of mere micrograms, the mind becomes confused. Perception is distorted. Personal identity is called into question. The results can be euphoric bliss or deadly panic.
During one particular experiment called Operation Midnight Climax, the agency set up brothels in San Francisco and studied the combined effects of sex and drugs behind one-way mirrors. Despite the CIA's attempts to destroy evidence in the wake of Watergate, Project MK Ultra and many of its atrocities and findings eventually came to light.
Here they took this drug, LSD, and thought that they were going to be able to use it to control people's minds, and the unbelievable irony is that LSD is a drug that does exactly the opposite. It frees your mind.
Number 3, Churchill and UFOs.
So everything at that time, particularly if they suspected it was a German weapon, would have been kept secret.
From Area 51 to Soviet astronomers calling for investigations into UFOs in the 1960s, unidentified flying objects have had a not-so-secret past with many of the world's governments. According to documents released in 2010, Winston Churchill apparently ordered that reports of UFO sightings and encounters be covered up during World War II.
During the war, lots of Lancaster bomber crews, for instance, came back and reported having been followed by what they described as balls of fire.
During one incident, a Royal Air Force bomber crew encountered and photographed a hovering metallic UFO. Churchill allegedly even went a step further and had the documents covered up for at least 50 years to avoid creating mass panic. Unfortunately, many first-hand accounts were destroyed before they could be declassified, creating even more mystery.
Winston Churchill took a UFO encounter during the Second World War so seriously, he ordered the information be kept quiet. The incident was said to have involved an RAF plane flying over the English coastline, intercepted by a strange metallic object.
Number 2. Effects of biological warfare. During the 1950s and 1960s, the U.S. government conducted several experiments on its own citizens to discover the impacts of biological warfare. In 1950, the U.S. Navy carried out Operation Sea Spray by spraying bacteria 2 miles off the coast of San Francisco to study how a city of its size would respond to bioweapon attacks. The Navy believed the particular bacteria they used could not harm humans. However, several Bay Area citizens suffered from serious urinary tract infections due to the experiment, with one patient even passing away after 3 weeks of suffering.
Believe it or not, I'm on the prowl for some water records.
You come to the right place.
I guess I did.
Despite the deadly consequences of Operation Sea Spray, the experiment and its impact were hidden until 1976. Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into Settings and switch on your notifications. Number 1. Tuskegee Syphilis Study.
They won't tell you nothing. Just tell you what come and roll your sleeve up.
As we've discussed, the U.S. government has carried out quite a few unethical studies and experiments on its own citizens, but this is the most horrifying of them all. Between 1932 and 1972, the CDC and the U.S. Public Health Service conducted a study on hundreds of African Americans who had syphilis under the guise of providing health care.
By the late 1930s and early 40s, large numbers of men on the study were dying. Public Health Service documents show that the death rate of those in the study was now twice that of the non-syphilitic black population of Macon County.
The officials hid the patient's syphilis diagnosis from them and withheld known effective treatments such as penicillin, causing massive devastation over the decades. News of the study finally broke in 1972, causing it to finally be terminated. By the time the study ended, more than 100 people had died, dozens more had been infected, and at least 19 children were born with congenital syphilis.
I treated a number of these patients and still have a few who were in the study. And the federal government has such a guilty conscience that they will buy them a 10-speed bicycle if I say it's medically necessary.
Did you enjoy this video? Check out these other clips from WatchMojo, and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.